Hey everybody, it's Holly here today with a new video for Market Pop, and we're going to be making this cute little card here using some products from Neat Tangled. I'm going to start out using the May Your Holidays Be stamp set along with the coordinating dies. And then I'm also going to use the Hexastar Stencil from Neat Tangled. And I'm going to be using some Tim Holtz Ranger Distress cardstock and ink. So we're going to start out with a piece of the Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock. You can use 8.5 by 11 or this pre-scored stuff here. And I'm going to start out with using the smooth side of the cardstock. That's just the side that I like to use, but you can use the rough side as well. I'm just going to place the stencil down over the cardstock. It doesn't have to be perfectly lined up. You can just get it wherever you want it to be. And then I'm going to take some Hickory Smoke Distress ink and a mini ink blending tool. And I like to load up the mini ink blending tool and make sure it's fully covered so I don't get any streaks. And then I dab it off on my scrap paper, and then with a really light hand, I start out very light, just kind of working around the stencil. I'm not making a perfect pattern. I want it to be offset a little bit. And then you start out really light because you can always go back and add more later to achieve the color you want. And this is a great card design that you can actually change up by changing up the colors. You can make a whole set of them just by changing the colors of the background and the color of the ornament. So you can just check where you're at and see if you need a little bit more. You could also spritz the background with some water to change it up and make a different effect. And then once I have that, I'm just going to set that piece aside to dry. And then we're going to go ahead and do some stamping. So I'm going to go ahead and get my mini Misty, and we're going to go ahead and get stamping. So I'm going to start out using the mini Misty, or you can use the large Misty if you have it in your stash, and some Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I'm going to go ahead and stamp the ornament and the banner from the May Your Holidays Be stamp set. And I'm going to use some Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I'm going to be coloring my images in with some Copics. You could also stamp this on some watercolor paper and use your zigs to color it in. I think that'd be really pretty, or just your watercolors. And the great thing about the mini Misty is you can stamp and then re-stamp in the same position if you don't get a great perfect coverage. I had almost perfect, but I just wanted a little bit darker, so I went ahead and added a little bit more. Then I like to do the banner or the sentiment separate to make sure the lines don't get too thick. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that off and pull them off of the Misty there. Then I'm going to go ahead and stamp the little, I guess you would call it a starburst in the center of the ornament. And I'm going to use some Lawn Fawn Hippo ink to do that with. And when I did this, I forgot to actually prep the stamp. This is a new stamp set, so I usually like to run my finger over the clear stamp first to kind of prep it for the ink, or use the back of an eraser, so I had to stamp it twice just to get a little bit extra coverage there. If you prep your stamp first, you don't have to cover it. You don't have to do that. You can just stamp it once to get a nice, smooth, clear image. So once I have that set, I was going to go ahead and put my sentiment on, but I decided to wait because of stamping that twice. The ink was a little bit wet, so I wanted to just wait a few minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and start coloring, and I'm going to be using R000, R00, and R11 for the ornament. And then I'm going to be using C3, C1, and C00 for the top of the ornament to make it look like a little silver piece there. So I'm starting out with the lightest, which is R000. Then I'm going to my darkest, which is the R11. And then I go back in with the R00 to kind of blend it out. And I'm keeping my darkest area on the side there, as if the ornament was kind of turned on its side a little bit. And then when I get to the topper of the ornament where I want it to look silver, I'm going to lay down the C00 first, and then I'm going to go over it with some C3, and then I'm going to go back over it with some C2, not C2, C1. And then I'm going to leave like a little empty spot in the center where there's no color to kind of make like a highlight. And then you just want to go back over that with your 0 marker just to make sure you're emphasizing that little highlight area. And then I'm going to add a little bit of the C's to the banner, just using the same ones I have out. The C3, the C1, and the C00. When you're using something like this, and you can just use the same markers you have, it just works easier. This is the first time I've ever recorded a video. It was like 17 minutes. I was able to edit it down from start to finish, so this is a great card you could do multiples of. So if you're like me and you're running a little behind your Christmas cards, this would be a great one to crank out just by making some different colors and changing up the backgrounds. And then after I have those all colored in, I'm going to go ahead and put this piece back into the MISTI. And I'm going to stamp the Merry and Bright over that starburst using some VersaFine black ink. I use the VersaFine because it's nice and dark, and I really wanted that sentiment to pop, but you could have just used the Memento Tuxedo black ink as well. And sometimes when you're using the VersaFine ink, you can get one shot with it, with one stamp, and sometimes you need to go back over it twice. Luckily, I had one shot and was able to get it in there. But you can see how that black really pops against that hippo ink. It's kind of pretty cool there looking. And with VersaFine, it's pigment based and it's wet, so that if you do stamp that over another ink that's wet, you do run the risk of it kind of bleeding a little bit. So that's why I wanted to wait until that hippo ink was nice and like it was dry somewhat. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off 1/4 of an inch around each side of the original background piece so that I can put that on the front of the card. And I'm just using a mini tonic paper trimmer. And I'm going to go ahead and run these images through my die cut machine using the coordinating dies. And I'm just going to line them up with some washi tape to hold it in there. And I'm just using my Big Shot. So I'm going to go ahead and run those through, and then I'll be right back and we'll get started finishing up the card. Now that my images are all cut out, I'm going to go ahead and get that background piece onto a black licorice piece of Lawn Fawn cardstock. Actually, I don't think it's called black licorice. I think it's just licorice. And I just cut it at 4 1/4 along the 8.5 inch side to make a standard top folding A2 size card. And I'm just going to go ahead and put my adhesive directly on the back of the panel. On the card I showed in the beginning, I actually had a little bit of foam tape on the background, but with the foam tape on the ornament too, it just made it way too thick to send through the mail, and it's going to slow down your process if you're mass producing these. So it looks fine just putting that background panel directly onto the card front. So I'm going to go ahead and add some foam adhesive to the back of the ornament and the banner. I have no idea where my big roll of foam tape is, so I found these little squares in a drawer, and I'm just going to go ahead and use these, but any foam tape will work. Once I have the adhesive all down and the foam squares all ready to go, I'm just going to go ahead and put the ornament down onto the front of the card there. I just put the ornament down in the center, and then I add a little bit of foam to the back of the banner, and then I just laid that directly over the ornament as well. Nothing fancy, keeping it simple today. Then I'm going to go ahead and add some sparkling clear Pretty Pink Posh sequins from the Sequin Mix. And I'm just going to adhere those down with some Ranger Multi-Medium Matte. I'm going to use my tweezers there to put them down where I want them. And then once I'm all done with that, I'm going to go ahead and use a Clear Wink Estella. And I'm going to go ahead and put that over the ornament top where that silver piece would be if it was a real ornament. Just using the clear. You could also use the silver if you had it in your stash. Gives a little bit of a sparkly element too. And then once I have all the sequins down, and then I've got the Clear Wink Estella on it, my card is finished. Hope you guys like it. I will see you back next week with some more projects. Hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.